So here with Robin Rudisil from Coastal and Diana Nave from Northwest, and as well as other members of the committee. So thank you, and we're gonna get started. We're gonna start with our first item, which is an update on the courthouse development. And I just want to remind everyone that this is a fully entitled project, and that we appreciate having Bill Cochran give us an update on this project. So if we allow him to give his presentation, I would appreciate it.
Before we do that, can I ask if there's someone who'd be willing to take minutes tonight? Because I'm really not feeling, I've got a bit of a bug and I'm not really feeling up to taking them. We could have.
Oh, that's right. Frank, would you mind doing that for us?
No, I will do that.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks,
You're
Frank.
welcome.
Okay, Bill.
Yep. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to kind of update everyone on where we are on the courthouse development. We've made a lot of progress. I know looking at the site, it's hard to know that, but a lot of the work that goes, before start of construction is all off-site. So what I thought I'd do, and I think I've been allocated 5 to 7 minutes, so I'll try and get through it very quickly. And I may skip over some details, happy to take questions. And also there's some things, I think initially the last time we were here, we said we would come back with some color options. We're still not quite to that point yet. And we technically don't need to decide the paint color probably for a couple of years. But, we'll be coming back with that as well. But we're very excited for where we are right now. Here's the image of where the project is now. Obviously, we've demolished the building. There was a little bit of remediation of some asbestos, and basically the site's cleared in the current condition. It still does have an active demolition permit on it, which leads to challenges for using it for anything else. Even though the land's there, we can't really. There are all sorts of liabilities and things of having that open permit for doing other things in the moment. These are some images you've seen probably before. We posted them on our website. I think we've shared them with others, but just to give a sense of what the scale is. The project was entitled in 2020, and the entitlements, because of tolling that occurred during COVID, the entitlements will run technically all the way through January 2026. But we wanted to come back and give you a sense. So we've evolved now. This is built off of a construction model. So this is a higher level of CGI. We're still playing around with colors. So you see there's kind of a little bit of a dark blue on here. We're going to keep playing around with those, but the general shape and design, nothing's really changed from what the entitlements are. It remains 300 apartments over a 2-story ground floor, because there is a 20-foot height change in the site from the corner on 6th Street being 6th and Center being the low point. And on 5th Street, kind of to the northwest, is the high point of the site. But the corner here is what would be the food hall. And I've got some interior renderings and overlay to give you a sense of what that is. Our goal is to make a space that would be really another anchored tenant for the San Pedro, and help bring people to the downtown that may not necessarily have come to the downtown, or and pull people for maybe at the port, another point of interest to pull people up into the downtown. And we'll get into that. We've tried to create a lot of different activities and kind of a food centric offering that's different than what's and we believe it would be enhancing to the downtown without being competitive. And so what you're seeing here, this is the corner at 6th and Center. The downstairs, we tried to conform as much as we could, kind of within the architectural constraints we had of kind of embracing the national historic buildings on the street, with kind of brick facades. And we've changed out the glazing to be something that's more conducive with kind of rehabilitation of older buildings, as opposed to it was a glass curtain wall before. In the mid block, there's a small space for a coffee shop, and then kind of the upper left would be the main lobby for the apartments. Going around to the right along Center Street on the corner of 5th and Center, there's a space for a small kind of 2,000 square foot sit-down restaurant, which is envisioned to be a California Italian kind of a restaurant, and then kind of wraps around the block as well. This is giving a sense looking down in. This is the kind of pool deck, and it gives you a sense there's a 5,000 square foot of public open space, which we've also added 1,000 feet to. We kind of pushed in the building into the food hall to create an extra 1,000 feet of outdoor seating as well, which we thought was attractive. Don't worry, all the plants will be kind of California native and consistent with the CPIO. One of the aspects that happens here is this is a computer generated image, and you have an artist that takes some liberties at times to do some things. But so the landscaping may not look as it should, but it will be in kind of the final versions. This gives you a sense of scale of the building. It's really kind of 8 stories. And using my cursor, if I can, what you end up with is the top 6 stories are the residential units. The bottom of that 6 stories is cement. The top 5 are wood, and the whole base is steel reinforced concrete, of which the bottom 2 levels are subterranean parking, which would be for the apartments. And then the 2 stories in the middle are probably where we spent the most time over the year and a half, which relates to the food hall and the restaurant and integrating that into the streetscape, as well as kind of the subterranean electrical vaults in there, which has gotten significantly larger. There is a requirement that we have electrical capacity for 30% electric vehicles in our parking, and 10% of the spaces will be installed, so there'll be 50 chargers in the building. So that has been a big impact of working through with DWP. What does that all look like? Making sure the vault is sized properly and integrating all of that into the ground floor areas. Also, as it relates to art, there's $1 million art budget with the county. Some of you may recall. There are 3 primary locations as we're starting to identify that with the LA County Art Commission. One is on the corner of 6th and Center out in the landscaped areas, kind of a location for sculpture or a larger kind of exterior piece that would be kind of set a very high profile position on the corner there. Also this wall, which is a walkway between parking, there's at grade about 80 parking spaces at grade intended to be for the commercial next to the food hall. There's a walkway here and a large wall space that almost maybe a secondary space. And we've also looked at it. Could it be something that we do with community art or displays, or maybe some kind of rotating thing? But there are various different ideas of what we could do with that space, whether it's with the county art or we just do it ourselves, kind of embracing the local art community, trying to figure that out as well. This gives you kind of a straight down look at the top, which gives you the green areas. There's a 20-foot setback with our neighbors. There's a little bit of a dog area outside. And then this is primarily the amenity deck for the apartments that includes a pool and jacuzzi. Getting into the food hall, what you have here, this is the corner of 6th and Center. So this white area outside is the 5,000 square feet of open space. It's not colorized, but it's 40% landscaped. And also includes some areas that have some potential for seating or some activities like cornhole or things like that that could be out here. This kind of pink patio, the one where the cursor is a little over 1,000 feet that's been added to the outdoors. We kind of pushed the wall in a little bit to create this outdoor space. It's also fenced for, which then makes it not part of the publicly accessible outdoor space because there's fencing around it, but it's seating for the food hall. There are roll-up doors here on the corner. So there are 4 roll-up doors. So this whole area becomes potential for indoor-outdoor space. And we'll show you some images of it. But again, this is all about 22, 23 feet high in terms of scale. It's very, very large. This is the main indoor kind of dining area. Again, it's 23, 24 feet tall. It has 14 food vendors around the outside, of which 9 of them have vented spaces. There's also an urban market, which is located up here, this green box, which would be kind of a small scale urban market with fresh produce. And likely also the current envision is maybe it would also do sandwiches as well. And then there's kind of this purple areas, kind of back of house areas. And then as we go, there's a second floor to it inside that looks out on this main area, primarily for entertainment uses or reasons for gathering. There are three kind of main zones to it. One is this zone on the left, which has the ability to kind of be a lot of multi-purpose type of uses. It could be very kind of small scale, intimate music, comedy, meeting spaces, and also would have audiovisual for sports and other things. In the middle is kind of a game area, which could also be for video games, and there's skee ball and pinball and that kind of thing. And then on the right is kind of a golf zone with 3 golf swing simulators and a putting green. To provide, not only kind of a food centric, the basic plan for the food operator or vendors is there'll be a process we'll go to, and it'll be really food focused, and unlike many restaurants or malls that are credit focused, this will be fully built out. It's built into the base building design. It's in the construction drawings. So that we can open this at the same time we open the apartments. As you see, many of these types of buildings, there's not really thought through these ground floor areas, and they just sit vacant for long periods of time. We've actually fully designed this, fully integrated into the base building so that it will be opening at the same time as the building. So our plan is to start construction this summer. It should take about 2.5 years to construct and open. It'll take about 6 months of excavation, about 24 months of construction of the building. And so sometime in the latter half of 2025, would expect to be open and have all aspects of the property open at the same time. As we move forward, here's some interior renderings. This gives you the central open space in the middle of the food hall. And you can kind of see the vendors around the outside, as well as kind of the spaces up above and a kind of a main staircase. We've also, in addition to the locations outside for art, there's also kind of a main wall that also could be, is viewed, could be also a location for art. It's got great viewing from inside and opens up possibilities just because it's indoor space as opposed to outdoor space. This is just giving you kind of look around the outside of kind of the various food that would be kind of a diverse offering. And we also have a wall this is the entrance off of Center Street. This was a picture of one of the old Fiesta celebrations from the tuna fleet. But our expectation was to do some kind of large photography that we could put on the wall that would kind of celebrate history of San Pedro. This was just an indicative image, but we've got to figure out the details of that. This is kind of wrapping around additional vendors spaces. This is the corner where we said these roll-up doors come up. Also, the intent was this to be kind of sports themed and have maybe a few extra TVs in here. So, you also get kind of a great kind of sports viewing location to, again, kind of a gathering place, a place for people to go, and also a broader kind of regional notoriety to attract people to the San Pedro downtown. This is from the top of the stairs, kind of looking down into the main hall, just to give another kind of view of what the space is kind of shaping up to be. This is that upstairs kind of multi-use space that could be live music, could be, meetings, could be presentations, can do also movies, could do sports, with the kind of the variety of what's there. This is just a rendering of kind of an arcade space and 3 golf swing suites. So tried to get through that really quickly. I might have missed some details. I also did want to just mention we've been working through this very collaboratively with the County of Los Angeles. Very much appreciate all of their efforts and support. And it remained kind of true to the initial vision, which was to provide a mixed-use project that provided not only housing, we're also both, it's not a part of the base entitlements, but as part of what we both, for our own mission statements, want to provide is 20% low income affordable housing. So there'll be 60 to 300 units. We'll meet that requirement by our own goals and objectives. And in terms of other pieces that I think we talked about previously, with the neighborhood councils, the hall route we had originally proposed was going on Gaffey. There was a request from a prior meeting that be moved to go down Fifth Street to Harbor and out, which we have done. So we have an approved haul route permit that does that. Again, we'd be open to, if there's a specific kind of group thought that's different than that, to be reactive to the neighborhood councils, but we made that change in the permit as a result of your feedback. And then I think separately in terms of street closure plan, we'd submitted to the city, relative to construction, we need space on the side of the project. This gets excavated lot line to lot line. And so the feedback that we had was protect 6th Street. Initially the feedback from our general contractor was that we could maintain the parking, and actually we would add parking space because there are no driveways on 6th Street in the plan, but might impact the sidewalk. And as we've studied that more, we can keep both the sidewalk and the parking open on 6th Street, but we need for both kind of truck deliveries and lay down space, and our temporary power, which has to go somewhere, would be on the sidewalk and parking areas along Center Street and 5th Street in terms of that piece. And trying to just double check. One other thing, just from a neighborhood perspective, I think there's obviously, a project of this size will be disruptive on the neighborhood, but also wanted to point out, we should have up to 300 union construction workers on site during construction. And they tend to hang around construction sites and look for, food and while on one side, there may be some impact on the neighborhood and the lay down areas I just mentioned. The expectation is they show up on site early in the morning and they tend to stop working around 2 or 3, and also and we also intend to engage as well, probably doing, we'll have to figure out what the right period of time is, but also engaging the local restaurant businesses providing food on site, because we tend to, during our construction periods, we'll do on-site food events for the construction team as well. But wanted to point out that I think also will be additive, where I think there's concern about people coming into the downtown during this construction process, but we'll also be adding, the average, I think, union construction worker probably has $100,000 income. So just giving a sense of kind of what they are and how they fit, relative to the community and the business community surrounding us. So I think I got through everything pretty quickly, but please let me know if there are any questions, and we'll go from there. I'm not sure how to answer questions either, so I've got my presentation up, but if you want me to give back control or do anything, please let me know.
Okay, well, we'll see what people have in mind for questions, but thank you for the presentation. Definitely interesting to see what the progress is. We have a few people that have questions, and let's see, we'll start with Rock.
Pat, that's amazing. It looks great, Bill. Thanks for presenting. I want to know where my office is going to be because my lease may be up by then. So this looks really good. Do you have any idea about lease rates in 3 years and what apartments may go for in 3 years?
The primary comparable for the property in terms of the market rate units, so 80% of the units, is really the Holland project that was developed a block away. They're kind of comparable units. So obviously the market may fluctuate wherever it goes, but our intent is to kind of lease those to wherever the kind of leasing market is. And the closest thing to that today is probably that project. It's the newest, kind of most comparable kind of construction. We probably have a little bit more in terms of amenities than that project. Between our pool's a little bit larger, we've got a little bit more, I think, dog care facilities, and we've also, we're sitting on top of the food hall as opposed to being down the street from it. And we've also got a sport court in the basement that also would allow for half-court basketball and pickleball. And the affordable pricing for those units is really dictated by HUD. So it's kind of what our income levels published by HUD, and apply 30% to that in terms of kind of what the lease rates are. So that'll fluctuate. It fluctuates a little bit with inflation, but it's based on kind of the regional income in the LA Long Beach metro area.
Well, I just know 550 Harbor started out actually pretty reasonable. I mean, overly reasonable, and they jacked it up big time, which is fine. You know, and when people ask me about why are there all these apartments, it's like, well, technically it's going to be more affordable than condo. We all know about the 10-year liability thing. So I just, I always been asked this question, so that's why I asked. But I love what you got going on downstairs. And when do you think construction will start again?
This
I mean,
summer is
actually-
what we're working
Okay.
towards. You know, there are a lot of variables of things we have to work through for final permit approvals and GMAX and financing and LADWP and variety of things. But you know, our target is June. Could we do it a little faster? Maybe May to June. You know, could we?
This summer is good. Great.
Something slow us down a little bit, but it's that's the window we're really, you know, we've got a large team that's working behind the scenes here, not only our own staff, but a huge group of contractors, subcontractors, consultants, engineers, you know, moving this whole thing forward. And in terms of, you know, we're in the process, all of our permits, you know, have been submitted. We're in terms of building permit. We are in the process of getting everything kind of signed off on, and we're at 50% construction drawings in terms of how we think about it kind of architecturally, including everything and including the entire food hall being built out turnkey. You know, so we keep kind of, we'll just work through that process. But we also expect our final building permit later this summer. We don't need the building permit. We'll be basically fully submitted, but while it's finishing processing, we'll be doing our excavating is kind of the plan, and have separated the excavation and shoring permit from the building permit.
Cool, thanks. I yield the floor.
Thank you. I had seen Linda, but I don't see her.
Pat, I think you're muted.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
I had two questions, one on acoustics and one on the hall routes. The acoustics in the, I guess it was the sports hall or something like that, it looks pretty cavernous. And I'm wondering, do your architects design for that too, to try to make it something less than a high school gymnasium? Number one, and number two, on the hall routes. What's happened in and around the port area is the port trucks have pretty high wheel loads, and they dump them out onto residential designed streets. And I'm wondering what role the Department of Engineering, your city engineering, and particularly the traffic engineers, what role do they play in designing the haul routes so that your trucks take use the streets that can handle the loads?
So let me take the one in terms of acoustics. Yes, we have sound engineers that are part of the design team. And so there are materials being built into the food hall that are sound absorbent materials to try and direct that, because there are a lot of hard surfaces in there. And so that'll be an ongoing as we're kind of refining, that being kind of final interior design. There are kind of a lot of different kinds of products that can be on ceilings or walls that are kind of felt like kinds of things that absorb sound. And so that's going to be a continued part of the process. In terms of the haul route, generally, that is looked into in terms of what's proposed of sticking to major streets. So in this case, initially, we were going up 5th. I think the direction we'd gotten from the city was to go up 5th and go on Gaffey and go out on the 110 freeway. And I think due to feedback from this committee, said, look, there's already a lot of traffic going through there. Let's not impact that. Let's go down 5th, go to Harbor to the 110 freeway. And that's really it. That's where the trucks are going for what we're doing. In terms of all the engineering, I'm not sure I can precisely answer that, but Fifth Street is considered in kind of the grid for San Pedro, one of the major connector regional streets as well as Harbor. So really, in our case, sticking to those major streets. I can't speak to what others do or how they, treat their truck hauling, but that's what we'll be doing.
Thank you.
Let's see, Diane and
Thank you. And thank you, Bill, for coming and giving us this update. I have a couple of things. One is if you would just explain to the committee members what happened when you tried to attract a grocery store. I think that's really good information to have because I know that was something you had really seriously considered.
Yep.
And the other has to do with your pull down doors. We've got a lot of pull down doors in San Pedro that are really ugly and a few that look great. And I'm just wondering kind of what's your plan? I know they'll look great, but what's your plan for making them look great?
Okay. On the grocery store, yes, we reached out to a number of grocery store providers. They were focused on a few things. One, they really didn't like that the port took up half their trade area, being so close to the port. They also were focused on being on traffic count on the streets as being part of their business model, and really wanted to be on a major street with traffic count, and preferred that there would be a stoplight, which would almost be an indicator of how much traffic count would be at that intersection. And so we had a number of people just not even interested, where they had other stores in the area, including Trader Joe's. Felt like this location, while there's so much density coming here, and you could argue this would be a great location for that, they really just had no interest at all and felt like it would cannibalize their location up on Western. And so we found limited interest. And so what we were faced with was no one really wanting to commit upfront. And if they had sites that they preferred, they were other locations in San Pedro that would be, signalized intersections with higher traffic count. And so we really pivoted to embrace the food hall model, which we thought was really interesting and additive and exciting. And it was also something where we felt like we were mitigating our leasing risk. So rather than having one large tenant, we were almost going to have to beg to take the space if we could even make it work. We now have a really exciting space, have lots of interest, and we're now leasing that out to 14 food vendors, and the remainder of the food hall we operate. And have built our own operating team because we also found that there was lackluster interest of necessarily committing, and we had to fully design this up front into the base building design to actually be able to open it at the same time and not have a year or two lag time in this space just sitting vacant on one of the major locations in the downtown. In terms of the pull down doors, this is a designed facade, as you can kind of see what's in here. So even in this corner, effectively, these are glass roll-up doors. They're going to go straight up because we have so much height here. They'll be specially designed just for this location. I can't speak to what the others are, but I'm happy to, separately, we can go look at what some of the examples are that you think maybe, weren't as desirable, and make sure that we're designing something that is. Our intent is that this will look great. And, it's there's other places where we are kind of spending money on the facade. It is this kind of front glass facade and brick veneer and making this corner really look and feel great. So happy to do that.
let's see, we have Lamar Lyons.
Look, I'm kind of new to this rodeo. I got on Central Neighborhood Council probably the latter part of last year, so I'm not really up to speed about a lot of the elements of this project. But my first question is, in terms of governance, is this a joint between the city and the county, or is it purely county?
It's county. It was an RFP in 2018. There was a prior RFP with a developer that didn't perform. So we've been working on it since then. It's a ground lease with the county is the structure, ground lease structure for the development, but yeah, it's a county project. It's barely been, I think there was a lot of public outreach that occurred prior to our involvement in 2018, and a study of what was viewed for this site would be beneficial for the neighborhood, which came down to a lot of feedback was a mixed use project of this nature. So a lot of that kind of upfront footwork had been done before we got involved. And then we've really worked to stay true to that and really make this ground floor into something that would be additive to the fabric of the downtown, as opposed to, in some cases you're seeing empty shops in other buildings that are at the ground floor on kind of major walkways.
The city is mainly about this from a permit standpoint.
From a permit standpoint, this was fully entitled in 2020. So we're just working through our kind of administrative kind of building permit type of stuff.
Ballpark wise, and again, let's just look for ballpark wise, what is the overall cost of the project? 20 million, 30 million, 40 million? Is it
200 million?
Is it financing wise, or using bonds or commercial lending?
We are 100% using union construction to build the project. And so it's a combination of tools available to us to finance a project like this. One, we're in an opportunity zone, so we've raised project-specific opportunity zone fund for equity. On the debt side, we've had the support of the AFL-CIO Housing Investment Trust from inception, and they've been in press releases about the project. So unlike some of the bank construction financing that's pulled away in the last 6 months, our financing is really a union construction pension fund money.
In terms of the 200 units, and you said 20% is, I guess, workforce and affordable. What formula is that based upon, the 20%, 20/80? How is that formula?
It's 300 apartments, and the formula for the affordable is a HUD formula. So it's 20% or 60 units are based on low income as published by HUD times 30%.
One last question. In terms of food vendors, is that an RFP process, or how are the vendors basically selected?
It'll be run by us. We're going to operate the food hall through an affiliate and have an operating team in place at this point. We're going to do some kind of RFP process. We haven't quite figured out how we're going to run that. We've reached out to certain people. The intent is that it'll be a combination of kind of people who already have followings in some way. That maybe, they're online, you can find them. There would be, because part of this is creating an online presence of people who would want to come here. So there are a number of chefs who already have online followings that have expressed interest in taking some of these vendor locations, also trying to embrace some of the local businesses as well. So, but the intent, the end of the day, which will be subjective, will be a function of diversity and food quality and how to fit those together so that everyone's kind of got their own, space to do whatever they're doing, but it's also, interesting, but again, very food quality. We're intending to build out entire kitchen, so someone just needs to show up and cook, really, and provide a great food product as part of the offering.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands, but we really appreciate giving us the update. It's a general question. Was there any changes to the outside other than what ground floor changes happened?
I'm sorry, for whatever.
Were there any outside changes on the exterior of the building since the last time we saw it?
Not the only changes I would say really are primarily on the corner on the ground floor. It's just refinements, but nothing really significant.
Okay.
It was really here because originally these columns were exposed concrete or stucco, so now they're clad in brick. This original 23-story glass was more of a just kind of a straight glazing, kind of modern straight glass glazing. So this is more of an articulated kind of black steel framed glazing that's got more character to it and fits better with kind of the historical context of this block on the street. Otherwise, it's, you know, the primary aspects, some of it's a lot of boring stuff, but it's a lot of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing. It's all stuff on the inside.
Okay.
And so, no, it's effectively the same project, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see it. The other question I had is any particular reason why there are no trees going down towards the corner on 6th and Center?
There may be one there. We run into issues that there are various different pieces. So there's some of it here. There's some for water coming down. There's some vaults in there to grab water off the street. There's some electrical. There's some, so and you'll see this on the existing streetscape as well. It's blank there primarily because of things that are built into the sidewalk area that don't allow for the root balls of the trees to grow.
All right, well, again, we appreciate coming and spending some time explaining what the progress is going and giving us an update, and we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, and our intent is we'll come back. You know, we need to, our expectation is this year, over the next 6 months or so, we'll have a lot more definition of what the art program is and where it may go. We want to share that with you. There'll be an RFP process run for that by the County Art Commission. And then, you know, also getting into kind of some colorization and some options, and which we had done before, but come back with kind of a final version of that. But and again, we're available and active. I'm active in the chamber. So, you know, also approachable too, if there are questions or other things that come up. Happy to do that separate from something more formal like this.
Thank you very good, very much. One last question. I see we have Alan.
Thank you, Javier. Just a real quick plug for native plants. I don't want to belabor the point, but where there is green, you can maybe save water and provide habitat by using native plants native to the area. That's it. Thank you.
And Alan, for sure, it's part of our requirements, and it's a restriction on the project. It's part of the CPIO. It's part of our entitlements. And it's part of what we've already submitted and have approved. So again, as I maybe mentioned, may not have been clear, this may not fully reflect looking like native plants, but that's really a graphic artist having fun with the landscaping versus what we're really going to plant. So for sure, we'll be true to that.
Which he addressed earlier.
I would just add, we do have a native plant nursery in San Pedro that produces plants from locally sourced seeds.
Thanks, Alan. Pat, one last.
Yeah, real quick, it's Bill, I had a professor in school named Bill Cockham, and you kind of look like him. You
That would be my father, yeah.
at Loyola Law School?
And what's that?
At Loyola Law School?
Oh, no, it wasn't at law school. My father's a professor. He's taught finance and ethics at UCLA Business School for the last 35 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Bill.
All right. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. I'll give back control here and let you move on. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next item. Let's see, is Juliana Moreno here? Let me see. Oh, yes, I got to promote her.
That I knew a port lawyer that looked like you, so.
I hope you look better than I do now.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is the Phillips 66 Marine Oil Terminal Engineering and Maintenance Standards. We have an update on the project by Juliana Moreno. And
Good evening, everyone.
there you are.
Thank you for adding me as a panelist.
Thank you. Sorry, I have not seen.
And I think if possible, would we be able to add Tim Seidel as a panelist?
The one that just says Tim?
I believe that may be him, yes. Thank you.
And are you going to be showing the slides?
Yes, we can share we have a,
We
More
need to
of a-
promote you. If you're the one sharing it, we need to promote you to a co-host.
okay.
So we'll do that.
Before you start, Javier, could you please promote Noel Gould?
I did. I gave him a couple of times. He hasn't clicked on it for some reason.
Yeah, I've tried also.
Okay, thanks for trying.
He keeps declining.
Share screen. Okay. So I'll do quick introductions. I think my colleague Marshall Waller just maybe introduce himself, but we have Marshall and Tim Seidel on the line. I'll let them introduce themselves. Tim, do you want to give a quick intro? I'll go last.
Yes, thanks so much for having me and the rest of the team. I'm Tim Seidel. I'm the general manager for Phillips 66.
Marshall.
Waller in the environmental department at the refinery, and I'll be going through the information on this project.
And I'm Juliana Moreno. I am the public affairs advisor for Phillips 66. So I will share screen. Hopefully this. It says host disabled attendee screen sharing. So I can't quite show that.
I'm having trouble finding.
Would you like for me to email it to you? Would that work?
I'm having trouble finding your name on the panelists.
Oh, no.
Javier, do you see her name? This is weird.
It's like the sixth one down.
She's in the main list.
Javier, can you find it? Yeah, it's not here. I have never come across this. Javier, are you there?
She's a participant, Diana.
The seventh one down on the panelist list. I think this was JM.
5. Here she is. Now you're back. I don't know what happened.
Okay, so I think I got more options now.
Yeah.
Screen sharing.
Yes.
Okay. Now I have to figure out how to do this. Let me see.
It'll
No.
show your desktop documents and you can select it.
Yeah, I have it. It's not giving me my desktop option. I apologize. I'm not used to Zoom. Okay, it says, okay, this is going to be very weird. You're going to have to see my downloads folder. Wait a second.
There goes.
Are you able to see the window that I just
We can
pulled
see
up?
the folder, but not the
Yeah,
presentation
not
itself.
sure. Huh. Well,
Leanna, would you like me to try it?
yeah. Will you be able to add Marshall to as a
I've got share content as an option here.
try that. I don't see that.
Oh, only the host can share in this meeting. So I was
Diana,
wrong.
Can you help Marshall?
Just made you a co-host, Marshall, so now you should be able to share.
All right, we'll see here. There we go. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Screen. Sorry, I'm not exactly a pro at this, so just give me a second.
Much better than what I was doing. So
All right, it's stuck here. You're sharing your screen. Okay. All right,
Ooh.
can you see that?
yes.
There you go.
Yes, that's it.
Excellent.
All right, sometimes I even amaze myself. So I hope you can hear me fine. As I said, I'm Marshall Waller. I've been in the environmental department at the refinery for many years. So I'm going to talk to you today about a project that we're working on with the Port of Los Angeles, as you can see from this summary here. It's the name of the project is Marine Oil Terminal Wharf Improvement Project. It's to improve our project, our marine terminal, excuse me, which has been an integral part of our refinery, the Wilmington portion now of our refinery, since Union Oil, if for those of you old enough to remember that name, built the refinery literally over 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago now, and the terminal has been an integral part of it this whole time. The project is to do upgrades required by an earthquake standard passed by the state of California several years ago. And the name of it is Marine Oil Terminal Engineering and Maintenance Standards, or MOTEMS. That's a mouthful. And what it is basically, as I say, upgrade primarily the wharf itself or the dock to meet earthquake standards, so that if there was an earthquake while a ship was tied up to the dock and the hoses were hooked up, and it's either taking, we're loading oil onto the ship or unloading oil off the ship, that it can ride out an earthquake and not, have a release of oil to water or have a fire. So it's an important project, and the port right now is working on putting together an environmental impact report, which is required by the California Environmental Quality Act, before they can issue us a permit to do this work. So that they're anticipating having this EIR done by the end of the year. And the EIR is going to cover really two areas. One, the physical improvements we're going to make required by MOTEMS. And it's also going to address the other angle we're working on with them, and that is getting a long-term lease for the terminal. Minimum 20 years, but with the option to extend it by 2 10-year increments, so potentially 40 years. We are pretty much the last marine oil terminal in the Port of Los Angeles to go through this process. There have been at least 3 others I'm aware of who've already successfully had the CEQA analysis and have gotten their permits. I don't know what stage they're at as far as actual construction, but we're pretty much the last one. So this is nothing new, and again, it's to make improvements required by state law. Let me see what else. So also, what is important about this project is what it is not. It is not going to increase the capacity of the marine terminal as far as how many barrels per year we can move across the dock, either, like I say, in or out. And it does not expand the refinery in any way. It doesn't physically touch the refinery, and pretty much the only physical changes to the oil terminal are, again, related to pretty much the dock itself. There are some upgrades on what they call the land side, but again, they're all related to MOTEMs. They do nothing to change our ability to load or unload oil. And the other angle is we do not handle crude oil through this terminal. I'm not sure what Unocal did 100 years ago, or Union Oil did 100 years ago, but in the last few decades, we do not handle crude oil through this terminal. We cannot, because our permits from the South Coast Air Quality Management District do not allow crude oil. We have no plans to change that. It's not being addressed in this CEQA document because we don't want to change those permits, and we have no plans to do it in the future. This is a project that's good for the not just the refinery, but the local economy. Our refinery employs about 700 full-time people. A large percentage of those are members of the United Steelworkers Union. And as far as the actual work that will be done on the marine terminal, all the construction work, we've committed to use building trade union employees from Southern California. So this is good for the local economy, and good for the safety of the port as far as minimizing a chance of a release of oil to water, or a fire in the event of an earthquake. So I think that's pretty much it. The other thing the terminal, the project is not, it will not increase truck traffic in the port area. Currently, our marine terminal handles mostly finished diesel that we sell, marine diesel. So we're kind of the gas station, one of the gas stations in the port for topping off the tanks of other ships that are calling on the port. We also handle what we call intermediate products, which are partially refined oil that refineries buy and sell from each other at different times that need further processing. And we're currently also just recently have been bringing in renewable diesel to supply our branded gas stations here in the Los Angeles area, which have all been converted to 100%. The ones that handled diesel fuel, they handle 100% renewable diesel now, no more petroleum diesel. The only other thing that comes in through our terminal and has for years and years are what are called lube oil blending stocks, because Phillips has a plant up near Compton that blends and packages finished lubricants like engine oil for your car. So their raw materials come in through our marine terminal and are put in tanks and then loaded into trucks to go up to their plant. That that amount of trucking is going to stay exactly the same. It's not going to be affected by the MOTEMS project. And again, there's no plans to increase the capacity of that part of the business to be. So then bottom line is the number of trucks will not change from what has historically been handled through the marine terminal. So Juliana and Tim, did I miss anything? That's pretty much all I had, unless you had any questions.
Yeah, no, I think that we're ready to take any questions that you all may have. Tim, did you have something to add before we relay questions?
Yeah, just to reiterate some of the key points that Marshall said. When we went through this initially with public comment, about a year to 18 months ago, just to get feedback from the public, the port asked for that comment period. Some of the misinformation as that was out there was there was concerns about whether or not we would be bringing crude oil into this facility. And as Marshall said, we have not, since we've been operating in it, we have no plans and we don't have the permit to bring crude oil into the facility. And then the one was, is it an expansion to the facility? And it is not an expansion. An expansion project to our refinery or our operations would require a completely different CEQA process that would be very rigorous. And this is just trying to maintain the current capacity we have at the dock. So we have the capacity, what we have today, we're absolutely just trying to say that we are trying to maintain the existing capacity we have today.
Thank you for the presentation. Question: what is the time frame for the EIR and then the consequential construction scheduling of that?
Sure. Marshall, you want to handle the environmental
Sure.
calendar, not handle the construction calendar?
Yeah, sure. The port is telling us that it's going to take the first step is to put out what's called the notice of preparation. That they're anticipating that's going to go out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Is the last thing they told us. Just to tell the public, hey, we're starting on this process. They're thinking that before the EIR will go out for public comment in the fall, and their goal is to have the process wrapped up and certify the document by December of this year.
And just to add to that, the public comment, the NOP, the notice of preparation, gives the project overview. there is a public comment period there, and that starts, it's a 45-day period that starts tomorrow. In addition to that, there is going to be a meeting announced by the Port of LA tomorrow in that NOP, taking place on March 14th, which will be the live Zoom meeting for also public comments. And that's, again, in preparation of the draft EIR.
Thank you.
As far as the construction schedule, once we have a permit in hand, we've actually pre-invested to procure a lot of the equipment that we have. It requires a lot of new, not wooden timbers, but pier installations, and we should be able to install a temporary solution just so we can to expedite the project to get in compliance on the existing dock to allow us to take ships and take any type of seismic pressure off that dock, and within a 6-month time period. And then about 2 years after that, we should be able to complete the full project to install the fully compliant dock.
Okay, thank you. I see we have a question from Frank Anderson.
Yes, my concern, and I believe I heard it said that you were seeking long-term leases for this dock, and my concern is that the number of vessels, is that going to increase also?
So with regards to, there's a couple things that control the number of vessels, but I'll say primarily, we don't know where the new regulations are going. It could increase or decrease. What we're adamant about is that we're not doing anything to increase the capacity of the dock. Utilization is a little bit different. It's somewhat market-based, right? So like Marshall had mentioned, so 6 years ago, we brought no renewable diesel in across that dock. There wasn't a market for it. But now as things change and we're going through a transition to try to have a smaller carbon footprint, we've seen a big drive to increase the market share of renewable diesel. And we've actually converted all of our 76 stations from petroleum-based diesel to renewable diesel. And the only way for us to get that here today is either across that dock or to try to find somewhere else to buy. So
yeah, I understand that. And also I'm concerned that, the state has a goal by 2035, we'll eliminate these fossil fuels. So I'm thinking, you have a long-term lease that was mentioned, and to me, that's a concern. That seems like that, maybe we're not going to meet our goal of being fossil fuel free by 2035 if these terminals remain open with long-term leases.
Yeah, so I would direct you to, I think about 2 weeks ago, the port actually had a large public meeting where they talked about the future and talked about that transition. And they talked about the need for customers like Phillips 66 and some conversions that have been made with motems, and the need for us to make it through that transition. So even though there's I will say an ambitious regulation try to eliminate the sale of combustion engines by 2035, and we might attain that, there still will be a lot of demand for the product well beyond that for people that still own cars or can't afford electrical vehicles. So it will not be a cliff that we drop off of with regards to the demand for the products we currently make. It will be a slower decline, even if as we try to be aggressive and be a leader in the environmental space in the state of California.
Thank you.
And one of the things to point out, to add to that, the Port of LA is still processing long-term leases with other refineries and other fuel brands such as PBF and Shell, I believe. Tim, is that the accurate one? That
Yep. Shell has converted their dock over. Well, they've got the permit in there in construction at some phase.
So they've both received the permit to upgrade their dock, and they have a long-term land lease.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Lamar Linus, you have a question? You're muted.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure whether I missed part of the answer, but I believe the question was how many, I think we're talking about numbers. And so did I miss the numbers you said were present versus future?
So the answer is we really don't know. It depends on future regulations. It depends on where the market goes. What we're saying with this project is we're maintaining the capacity. Utilization of that dock always depends on where the market is. So
Well, for the present value analysis, the number present, how many ships are presently on the ledger?
So under normal present, we usually bring in about somewhere between 15 and 20 ships today, and then some barges to supplement that. And I don't have a good accurate number for barges, but it is in the formal ER document. We can get you on what the baseline is.
Thank you.
Yep. And we're
Thanks,
actually considered by well, that's actually by CARB. We're considered at our current rate a low volume terminal.
Thank you. Diana?
It's actually Pat. I'm using
Oh,
Diana.
Pat.
My computer sound is not working, so I borrowed her laptop. She's right next to me here anyway, so she can poke me if I'm saying something wrong. The project description that'll be in the NOP, and I'm sure you guys have worked on it with the port and their consultant. Is the project description the same as the project description that was in the MND? The mitigated negative deck?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, the project itself is not changing. They,
Yeah. Well, the
you know,
project.
correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but we went through the process, did an MND, and they got so many public comments, they decided, this was such a sensitive issue, they needed to do a full-blown EIR. So
Yeah,
what's the contents of what's going to be in there as far as describing what the project's going to entail is not changing. It's just doing it again in a different document.
I think that may be the source of some of the confusion too, Mr. Waller and Tim, is the project description in the MND included refurbishing a number of tanks and replacing a number of pipelines throughout the terminal. And it also included the statement that the capacity for throughput would increase from 6 million barrels a year to 13 million barrels a year. So what was wrong with the MND that said that?
There's no increase to capacity. I'll have to look at the document that you're referring to. I don't recall that. The MMD, the date on that, I'll need to make sure I understand too. We have had some iterations back and forth once the port determined that there was a need for a full-blown EIR and it was not going to go neg deck. And there may be some small modifications to that document. So I don't want to say that there weren't any, but I can firmly quote, there is nothing within this project that increases the capacity of the dock. We don't increase any pump sizes. We don't increase any pump line sizes. There's no new tanks that are going in service with regards to this project. And in order to refine more material, we would have to have an additional permitting process that would take place at the refinery, which would be very rigorous.
I'm thinking that leads to another question. Perhaps we can approach it this way. It's possible that the MND language can be interpreted to say that because you have a couple of docks that are out of service now because they're not OTEMS compliant or earthquake safe and so on, that once those things are either taken out and or refurbished, that you'll retain or you'll obtain the capacity that you nominally have but haven't been physically able to attain. So what will be the throughput capacity for the terminal once the MOTEMS work is completed?
So Marshall, could I get you to jump to the second page of that one pager? One thing to note is that, correct, I think you stated correctly, the marine terminal is not it's not currently being used up to capacity. So what's being included in the project description is what the actual capacity is. And I think Tim, I'll let him elaborate on this, but as he mentioned before, a few years back, there wasn't any sort of need or demand really for renewable diesel. And I think that's kind of one of the products that is being, moved through this marine terminal. Tim, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think this is a good update. And I'm glad you showed this side of the slide.
Well, what is,
And on this one pager, the one thing I did want to say is if anyone that is on this call right now listening to this update, if you would like to get this one pager mailed to you, I would ask that you email Diana your preferred mailing address, and we would be more than happy to mail you a copy of this one pager.
you're going to mail it already to her?
It's already in the agenda packet.
Okay.
All people
Well, then-
need to do is go to the agenda packet and download it.
I think I hear you saying, you didn't answer the question I asked you, which is, what is the nominal throughput capacity? If the docks were all available right now, is it 13 million barrels a year, or is it 6 million barrels a year?
So actually, that's why I wanted to point to the question here, on the right column at the top, that actually has the numbers of the throughput capacity for the marine terminal.
These are not capacities.
It's not capacity. This is
Sorry.
This is activity,
Utilization.
current activity, not capacity. Capacity is not changing. As part of this document, because this includes the lease renewal, the port asked us to project, gee, what level of activity do you think you might have in the future? Well, that's asking us to look in a crystal ball and predict 20 or even 40 years in the future what our level of business is going to be. As you can imagine, that's a very inexact science. So what the numbers you're seeing there are saying, comparing, what's our current level of activity, which is, as Tim said, is driven by business demand, and what do we think it might be in the future. So we made very conservative estimates, guesstimates of, gee, what kind of products are we going to be selling or bringing in 40 years from now? That's not easy to do. But the key thing is, the terminal has the physical capability of doing those numbers today, but the business isn't there. We're just guessing that in the 20 or 30 years in the future, it might be there. As Tim said, the landscape is changing on our business very quickly here. But come 2035, we're not going to go away. That just says, 2035 is the goal to stop selling internal combustion cars. There's still 10 million cars on the road in LA alone today. They're not going to be that fleet is not going to turn over overnight. So there's going to be demand for petroleum products for quite a while.
Yes.
The question is, what kind of petroleum products and where's that demand going to be? We need to be prepared. We need to be able to prepare to deliver our product to customers wherever they are, and the only way to get to them might be by ships as opposed to pipelines.
Well, for SQL analysis, Mr. Waller, the document that I'm looking at says that the 2019 operations future terminal throughput projected at the time to be 13,724,000 barrels per year. In the EIR, the baseline terminal throughput is based on 2021 operations, and the future terminal throughput is now projected to potentially be 23,761,500 barrels per year. But you're saying that the throughput is not changing. That's present conditions. But in the SQL analysis, if you're building something, and even though you're not using it now, if you're going to possibly use it in the future, you got to evaluate that, don't you?
Well, we are. That's why we're saying the future, the reason it went from 13 to 23 is just in the time since we put together the numbers for the mitigated neg deck. Again, we're starting to see, you know, the landscape of our business changing already and changing that quickly. So that's why when the port said, hey, we're going to basically do another document, we looked at it again, and to be very conservative, we thought we decided, you know, that 13.7 million, that could be low. We need to be forthcoming and say it could be as high as 23.7. Again, Tim, correct me if I'm, you know, misstating anything here, but that's why we're trying to be forthcoming and say, if we're here around 30 or 40 years from now, it could be that high. But again, that's driven by business demand. It's not, the MOTEMS project does nothing to change the capability to pump that many barrels. We could theoretically do that tomorrow.
You could do the 23 million through the terminal tomorrow?
Yeah, because remember,
Good.
the terminal has two docks, two wharfs, one of which is an old wood one that has been out of service since 2008 because it's in such bad condition. We're using the concrete wharf, which was built, I believe, in the 50s. When we do the MOTEMS project, as Tim mentioned, we're going to do some temporary some partial upgrades to the existing concrete wharf while we tear down the wood one and put in a new modern all steel and concrete new wharf. Then we will stop using the existing concrete one because it will not be fully MOTEMS compliant. So today we only have one dock. After the project, we'll only have one dock. So we're not increasing dock capacity at all. And as Tim said, on the land side, we're not putting in any new pumps. We're not putting in any new pipelines. And yes, the document includes refurbishing existing tanks that have been there for decades and already have permits. And we're just, again, being very conservative to say, well, there's going to be some activity related to refurbishing, which is maintenance work, which strictly speaking does not have to be evaluated by CEQA. CEQA, you evaluate any project that needs a permit. We don't need a permit to refurbish tanks because they're existing. But, you know, we included it just to be, again, be conservative.
Have any of them shown that there's leakage in the soil? Then at the tanks and the pipelines, both that you're replacing. But look, all three neighborhood councils who are represented here this evening have submitted comment letters on the MND, and I'm sure you're aware of that. And one of the several of the things you talked about were subjects of those comment letters. One of them was pollution. This has been a terminal, marine oil terminal that's been in operation since 1918. And we've never been able to find anything that shows that there's been an environmental evaluation on the terminal area. So in the areas where you're replacing pipelines or refurbishing tanks and so forth, have you done any testing work to see if there's leakage or contaminated soil in those areas? And then I have another question on pollution that I'll ask.
So I can handle the construction side of it, and maybe between Marshall and I, we can try to shed some light. And we really do appreciate this dialogue because we knew there were a lot of comments that came out from the community, and that's why we're trying to get out here in several venues to make sure that we're shining light on this. So with regards to our tanks that we're refurbishing, we have very strict standards which we're in compliance with to take those tanks at certain frequencies. There's governing bodies both between the Coast Guard and the DTSC and the EPA, which puts limits on when how when we take a tank out of service, what's the requirements to go ahead and look and test and make sure that we're repairing any tanks to a very high standard. So any tanks that we do put back into service will have a very rigorous construction process. As far as the land conditions, I mean, there's no doubt this area around has had multiple operators in this section. There's been leases. There is probably 11 parties of interest that the water board is working with on this general property. just to make sure that we have a good idea of any contaminant levels. And we have active remediation programs that are here at this facility as well as both of our refineries. So that's constant work that we do with the agencies to make sure that we continue to work on cleaning up properties that have been there for 100 years plus.
The area that's kind of in the center where Olympic Chemical, Hooker Chemical, LA Terminals were, is a very polluted area. I'm sure you're aware of that. Are you touching that area at all? And if
So interesting enough, we are in negotiations with the port about that. There's a 13.5 acre parcel right there where, I'm not looking at the map right now, but where the rail track is, that's currently not part of our lease. That's an unleased section that the port is trying to find ways to work to clean that up. There's who knows what has happened there in the last 100 years. It's never been part of our lease, but we are always at the table with them. We are always at this table with the state water board and trying to find solutions to continue to find who's cleaning it up. And that will be part of the conversations as we have going forward with our long-term lease. And we're working very closely with the port to try to figure out a way to help clean up a piece of property that we've never been a tenant of.
Well, your predecessors, that area was in your predecessors' leases. You've been there how many years now? 3 years or so?
No, I don't even think Unical was ever part of that lease. So
Well,
we've had leases around it, but the primary leases on that triangle are Occidental Chemical and a company was by the name of LAT, which is not an operating facility. So those are the ones I'm aware of. I don't have all the history.
Javier probably wants to move on.
I'm sorry.
I said Javier probably wants to move on.
I have one last question, and that I'm aware, I've been told anyway by the port that when Phillips took the parcel over, it negotiated as part of its agreement that Phillips would only be responsible for any pollution that it added to the area. Is that your understanding of it as well?
I'd have to go back and read the lease language on that today, and I can tell you that lease language will be will be modified, and there will be, and the port has different language that will help clarify that better. And I will tell you that it's very similar to what our counterparts have done with their long-term leases.
Yeah, and I'm fairly certain that your predecessor probably negotiated out its liability. My real concern is that the ports, and this doesn't really concern you, but it ought to concern the folks here in San Pedro, the Chuck Harts of the world and others, that the port is looking at a huge cleanup responsibility for that site, since it's been used as a marine oil terminal since 1918, and every other marine oil terminal has been pretty and pipeline has been pretty polluted, and it costs a lot of money. I'm concerned that their judgment may be affected by the fact that they're taking on a lot of cleanup responsibility in the future, and I'd hate to see the port do that by skipping over or issuing another 40-year permit that just delays the effective cleanup of the site. That's just a comment. With that, I'm going to put my hand down.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Tim, Liana, and Marshall. And thank you for the information. Sure, we're going to be following this through. And as you stated, the public comment on the EIR will start as of tomorrow.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
If the port is able to issue the NWSPNC plan, then it'll start tomorrow.
Okay.
That's the timeline that the port is aiming to work on. The last thing I was going to reiterate is that Diana said the one pager is available on the packet that you received today, and available for download, and we would be more than happy to mail it to anybody if you would like to provide Dana with that mailing address.
Sure, sure. Thank
Also
you. And yes,
happy to
Tim.
entertain any future conversations or questions. You know, we are here and we'll try to be as transparent as we can as possible. And we have the same, I think we have a lot of common goals on what we're trying to work towards, and that's to provide energy to our community and continue to reduce our environmental footprint in LA County.
There
Thank you,
is
and we
a,
appreciate that.
there is an email to contact on that one pager. So feel free to email us there and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very well. We'll make it available for anybody interested, and we'll pass along any comments or questions from stakeholders as well. Once again, thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well. We're going to move on to our next item on the agenda. Item 4. Sergio Carrillo is here from CD15 representative. Welcome.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to keep my comments pretty short, actually, today, but I do want to just say thank you for the opportunity to be here. On Monday, we have a new employee starting in our office, and she's going to be our planning director in our office, who comes from the neighborhood council movement. She sat as a member of the, I believe it was the Harbor Gateway North Neighborhood Council. Her name is Thornton. Pamela Thornton is her name, Pamela Thornton, and she starts on Monday. My area that I will still have is I will handle the ports, special projects, and intergovernmental affairs is the area that I will be handling. So I'm here to report, but really here to report that you have someone that's going to be 100% planning. That's all she will be doing starting on Monday. I will be transitioning over to her next week, and I will be sharing all of you and the work that you guys do as the joint planning and land use committee for the 3 neighborhood councils in San Pedro. And really, the only, I know we have individual ones as well here in Pedro, but I haven't had the opportunity to work with any other ones in CD15 in the 2 months that we've been here. Of interest to this neighborhood council, I'm so sorry. Let's talk a little bit about the billboard. That exciting billboard. Well, let me just say, we have served them with a legal retainer. They have been served. We're waiting for them to take it down. We've heard now that they are in the process of doing so. This afternoon, before I left the office, I checked. I still had not applied for a permit for demolition, but we know that they are in the plan of doing it. I wish I had other news to tell you about that billboard, but I mean, even some of you, and I don't know if it was anyone on this particular screen today or in this Zoom room, but some of you have even emailed us about turning off the power to the billboard. Well,
Yeah,
even then, there's certain things that we cannot do without notices and what have you. But that also is in the mix. That's also happening, I think, soon. They had to be noticed that we were attempting to turn that off. So that's where it's at. I wish I had more to report on that, but don't really have more to report on that. Second thing I do want to report on, and 2 more items, is tomorrow's connectivity workshop at the Port of Los Angeles. Definitely encourage you to attend. The port is spending some money with some consultants, as you know, to create a plan that connects the waterfront to San Pedro and San Pedro to the waterfront, and how we connect ourselves to that waterfront. Some of us in the Zoom room were invited to a small focus group about a month and a half ago. So this will be pretty interesting. Definitely encourage a lot of you who are not yet part of that to attend tomorrow, to be a part of that. Because I think it's going to be a very, very interesting. The next announcement that I have is that, as many of you may or may not know, one of the promises that is that Tim, Councilmember McCosker? I don't think so, right?
No, that was our previous
Okay.
speaker.
Whew, Lordy, I thought he was here to check up on me. One of the promises that Councilmember McCosker made on the campaign trail is that he was going to do something uniquely different. He was going to have a town hall meeting quarterly in each of the 5 communities in the 1-5. That equates to about 20 town hall meetings a year, which is a lot for the staff, but a lot nonetheless. And that is something we're committed to do. We had our first town hall meeting last week in Watts. We have our second one tomorrow in Wilmington. We have the next 3 planned, and we're finalizing a date on and I think they might already finalized it, but I don't have it, for San Pedro. I believe it's going to be held at Peck Park, so it's going to be hosted in the Northwest neighborhood, the very first one. We'll get you a date tomorrow. I think we're just finalizing that date if it hasn't already been done so. But at these town halls, Councilor McCosker is different. I mean, he has been to your meetings since he's been a council member. He's making himself available almost everywhere. He gave out his phone number to everyone in San Pedro during the campaign, and so they all call him to this day. One of the things that us as staff sometimes drives us crazy is that as an elected official, he's not supposed to add stuff to his calendar, but he does it all the time. And then we have to run around after him like, oh, where are we going now? Because he had another meeting to his schedule. And it's definitely been very, very interesting. It's been a lot of fun as we learn his style and the fact that he likes to be everywhere and wants to be everywhere. That is something we're very excited about. Diana Nave gave me a few things that she wanted me to report on, and unfortunately, I don't have anything to report on what she asked me. I'm looking for my notes right now. I think I might have something to say. Efforts to save the trees of the storage facility in North Korea. I definitely have looked and talked to planning. Nothing that we can report as of today. I do have my notes at home. I'm at the office. I didn't bring them today. We don't have an update. We, the city, have not been formally giving any information as to what UCLA's plans are for the Marymount property that they've purchased. Especially here, the one that's in the city of LA property. We have yet to hear anything formally. We did get a weird phone call, just so you know, from UCLA asking about space within the port to create a maritime campus. But more than that, we have not heard anything. Don't have an update on the Holland Partners project across from the municipal building. I do know that I went to lunch just recently at the Green Onion, and were informed by the waiters there that they were told they were going to stay around a little bit longer. So I don't know much more than that. I do know that there was a planning case that was submitted to the planning department. I think I actually have that number somewhere here, but really not much more than that. And I just have to apologize because I don't. On that note, any questions that I could answer?
Thanks, Sergio. Let me see. Does anybody have any questions for Sergio?
By the way, my background, just so you see, is something I would like to share. It's a hotel on the beach in Tel Aviv in Israel. And you know how in Hebrew you read right to left. Well, the colors of this hotel is the pride colors, and the colors are also right to left. And so I always like to point that out, because even in the colors of the hotel scheme, it was right to left. So that was one of my trips that I took about a couple of years back.
Interesting.
And if I can answer any questions, I will try my best.
I thought that was his house.
What's that, Frank?
I thought that was his house.
Oh, Frank, thank you so much. I'm a government employee again.
I'll call it Carrillo Castillo.
I like
There
it.
you go. I don't see any hands up, but I was one of the ones that suggested cutting the power to the billboard. So, you know, I'm hoping as everyone else is that they move and they don't make it more difficult. It was just surprising that they were still advertising to sell space there when they know that the lease is over.
You know, I will tell you that it's been interesting working for Councilor McCosker the last few months. And for the most part, what you see is what you get. Level, you know, just plain level out there into his job. But there was one day when we were in the office and I had some people in the conference room where all of a sudden you heard him just screaming at the top of his lungs, yelling. And it turned out he was talking to the billboard company. And I'm like, and he was still professional. He didn't say any bad words. I mean, I would have. He didn't, but he definitely was saying just how urgent this was, how important this was. And I mean, his voice was loud. And so I had people in the conference room were like, well, what's that? And I didn't know what to say, because I said, oh, it's the TV in the next room. I didn't know what to say, but that was him. He's very upset about that billboard. I mean, we really all wanted to come down. We're hoping it comes down relatively soon.
Yeah.
And know that he's done everything. I mean, we now are at the legal issue with this. And so we're having the lawyers handle this now.
Well, that's good to hear. Let's see, Alan France, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Javier. Thank you for the presentation, for the information, Sergio. I just wanted to follow up on one point you touched on, which was the UCLA connection. And you mentioned there was a contact. Do you have any recollection of what department or administrative office that came from?
The guy says he was a professor at UCLA, and the campus was looking for more space for their students. And
it wasn't anybody from administration, for example.
I don't think so. We never heard back. I mean, I called the guy back, and then I said, hey, isn't the university just purchasing property to take over Marymount? And he goes, oh yeah, yeah, of course, yeah. And
well, I think they're also part of the Southern California consortium that's already in the port area somewhere.
Yes, they are definitely a part of the Altasea project, which is exciting. And I mean, right now, I don't know if you heard or not, they're actually starting construction at Altasea, and so it's pretty exciting to have that project moving forward. But yeah, they're a part of that as well.
Okay, well, when you get any updates, I think there's a lot of people who would be interested to know as early as we can what UCLA's plans are.
And they have not notified the city at all. I mean, that one I actually called, and they, they just purchased a building, 2 months ago, or the property 2 months ago. They're probably still dealing with consultants to figure out what they want to do before they file an application. And they're probably in the very, very early stages on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see any, oh, Brock Hatchfield.
Wait a minute, are you saying that Loyola Marymount purchased the Topaz building?
No,
Okay, well, you're talking about the space there where Loyola Marymount was. I just wanted to make sure.
no. No,
I
sir.
wish it would.
I meant talking about California Marymount, the property up in Bar PD.
Yeah, I
As
know
well-
that, but there was
as well as-
talk about storefront there, so I was just.
Yeah,
checking.
no.
Very good. Again, I don't see any further questions, but thank you, Sergio, and
Yeah, and I'll be here in case anybody pops up a question.
okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for
That
your
was a
time.
pretty good presentation, by the way, on the Motems project for Phillips 66.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. I'm glad they came.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Very good. Okay, we're moving on with the agenda. The next item on the agenda, I believe we're going to move future meeting because Lee Swanson, that was going to give the presentation, was not feeling well, and so he is not present at the meeting. So we'll move on to the next one, and that's one that I have some information on. We started with proposing a letter regarding the traffic problems we have in town. So I started by doing a little bit of research as to who I would approach, because there's so many ways to approach that. I started with the traffic controls and traffic issues, and that's under the Department of Transportation. So as I was doing research, I came across this fact that we're part of some of our streets are part of an area called high injury network. And as you can see, this network represents 6% of the total street mileage. It accounts for 65% of all deaths and severe injuries involving people walking, particularly with other traffic problems as well. So the city has that under view, and as you can see, the segments in blue are the areas in town that are considered part of that network, which are considerably, obviously Gaffney, Pacific, Grand Avenue, and I believe this one is Cabrillo. As you can see, we have a high number of streets that are part of that network. So obviously there are issues, and as a result of that, the city came up with the street improvements, safety improvements that we witnessed over the years. As you can see, between 2013 and 2019, there were 20 severe and fatal collisions on the Gaffney Street section alone. And I'm sure if we count it, I'm sure we could find that in Pacific and then on Grand. So they have incorporated different ways to control traffic, to slow it down a little bit and make it safer for cars and for people particularly. So that I started creating a letter that was addressed to them. This is the letter that was presented last night at the Central San Pedro board meeting, and this is what we're intending to send. It just basically states some of the the problems we have, and obviously problems are not just on Pacific or Gaffney, but the city in general. But we figured that this would be a way to get maybe having some engagement with the city and then start talking about some of these problems. Some of the problems are not just traffic control, but it's also like how to have people respect the laws, which is a little more difficult given the amount of police personnel that we have in town. So anyway, this is the proposed letter, and as I said, this was presented last night at Central, and we are moving this letter forward. I will share with some of the other councils so that you can alter it or decide how you might want to share this information. So does anybody have any comments or questions? Rock, is that hand from previous or? Rock is not even there. There he is. Diana. Or
Yeah.
Pat.
At our, it's Diana this time.
Okay, Diana.
At our board meeting, guess it was last week, the police captain commented that they do have somebody in San Pedro assigned to traffic patrol. It appeared they were looking at just major streets. And the conclusion of the meeting was that Northwest would collect a list of the intersections that we saw as problematic and send them to him. So if anyone has intersections they'd like to have added to that list, go ahead and send them to me and I will forward them to the person that's collecting that information.
17th in April.
I'm not taking it now. It's got to be full.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I am lying down flat. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's a
No
PSA.
problem, Diana. Maybe you could share the name of the person to me so I could kind of forward some information as well.
It's Melanie Lebrecht. But if you just forward it to me, I'll forward it to her.
Okay, very well.
Thank you for putting together that.
No problem. Hope you feel better. Alan?
Thank you again. I just wanted to thank you, Javier, for taking the initiative to develop a letter. This is a topic that I think all the neighborhood councils have had discussions regarding in the last couple of months, because we do see disregard really for traffic guidelines. And that's a particularly significant issue in the high injury network roadway where there's lots of traffic. So thank you for carrying the ball on that.
Thank you. Chuck. You have the floor.
You say something to me?
Yes.
Oh, pardon my back is out, it's killing me. The letter, I can't see it anymore, but it seemed like you had the last couple of years mentioned a couple of times, you know, it didn't have to be.
There's the letter if you want to.
I agree with Chuck.
What's that?
Right here.
It's just an editing question.
Oh, okay.
It says last couple of years, there's been an increase in problems related to traffic safety. And then you say the last couple of years because of the pandemic, you're repeating it. So I think,
yeah, sorry about that.
In the second sentence, you could just say recently or during the pandemic, that's all you need to say. During the pandemic, the lack of traffic enforcement on our streets has created it's just taking out some of the same words, that's all.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Thank you.
One of the things I requested from Department of Transportation was statistics as far as accidents compared, this year, last year, and the previous year, just to see what that trend is setting. And I think it would be obvious that we've had a lot more accidents in the last year or previous year than before. So just using that kind of information for stating our situation. Rock?
I don't want to belabor this, but it's really doesn't even have to do with accidents or whatever. It's gotten even worse the last time we talked about it. People are just rolling through stop signs. It's ridiculous, which is not really commented in that letter. And I don't care to over edit what you want to do, but it's like, you could point to accidents, whatever. It's the eye test, like they say in football. And it's like, people are just running around and don't even care. So that's all.
No, I totally agree with you. It's a bigger problem. It's almost like we got to create a safety campaign for creating conscience on people to, think about what they're doing, because definitely lack of respect for laws.
Lock 'em up.
So, I mean, you guys, Northwest and Coastal can edit the letter and tailor it more to that respect. So be happy to share with you. Diana, do you still have a question or? I think that's from previous. Anyway, if there are no further
Sorry,
questions.
I forgot to unmute myself. Sorry. This item, I was coughing badly a minute ago. This item was on our agenda as a possible action item. So I'm wondering if anyone, and Northwest does have a quorum here. So I'm wondering if anyone at Northwest would like to make a motion
I'll
to,
make a motion.
support this letter as amended by Chuck and Dan.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, Rock moved, Pat Nave seconded. Let's see, I think I have to call roll. One second here. Linda Alexander? Is Linda still on the line?
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Pat Nave,
Yes.
Dan Dixon,
Yes,
Chuck Hart,
Yes.
Diana, yes, Rock,
Yes,
and Craig is excused tonight. Did I miss anyone from Northwest? Okay, motion carried unanimously as amended. And Dan, I'll rely on you to make those changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I'll make.
so we won't have
letter
that meeting
available.
afterwards? Oh, never mind.
Very well. We'll move on to the next item. And let's see, where are we on that? So next item, updates on other items of interest to the committees. I know Diana is not feeling up to par, and we got an update from some of the items on the CD 15 list from Sergio.
I do have.
Anybody
some
else?
No, I have some updates, Javier.
Oh, okay, Diana.
I may not give all of my updates, but I'm going to give a few. One is with regard to the upzoning. Remember the upzoning that's been proposed? The city is finalizing their draft dates for what they're calling the launch webinars on the upzoning. They're anticipating doing 3 meetings at the end of March, so you'll want to watch for those dates. And then there will be additional opportunities for input after that. I wanted to second what was said about the connectivity plan. I think it's really important for people to try to go. I'm bummed about the weather. I think that'll really keep the attendance down. But this was a high priority to our neighborhood council. This is for input. They anticipate having another public session late in May, at which time they will have a draft plan available to review.
And I believe they're also going to be present at the first
Thursday.
In March.
Right. But last I heard, they hadn't chosen a location for that yet. The groundbreaking ceremony for the Front Street project, the one that connects Harbor Boulevard, Front Street up to Pacific Avenue. The groundbreaking for that is going to be on Thursday, March 9th at 3 p.m. It's going to be held next to the small fountain at Harbor Boulevard in Swinford. So we're finally going to see some improvements made, both in terms of the appearance, but also the connectivity there. And then the North Gappy one, they finally have gone out to bid, and they anticipate selecting the contractor in July of 2023. And then I can have public comments just to say to Northwest, we need to stay. If everyone from Northwest would stay for just a couple of minutes, we need to have a short meeting immediately following the joint meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Diana. Very well. We'll move on to public comment on items not on the agenda. Seeing none, I will call for the adjournment of the meeting, and our next meeting will be on Wednesday, March 22nd. So thanks everyone, and thank you for being here.
Oops. One thing about that, Javier,
Yes,
we,
Diana.
we may be required to meet in person, in which case the chamber has invited us to use their wonderful meeting room there, conference room there, which has great audio visual for presentations from developers, etc., and also from city staff. So watch your agenda to see whether it's in person or virtual.
Yeah, I think as soon as we know, we will let you all know, and so that you can plan on that. Again, thank you, and I'll leave the forum for Northwest to continue the meeting.
Hey, get well,
Thank you.
Diana.
I will.
Yes, Diana, I hope you get better.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour bug, I'm sure. So
All
thank
right, well, just take care. All right, good night.
you. Bye. Okay. At this point, I'd like to call the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council Planning Committee meeting to order. And I see present Linda Alexander, Pat Nave, Dan Dixon, Chuck Hart, Diana Nave, Rock Ashfield, and Craig Goldfarb is excused. Did I miss anyone or call someone present that wasn't? Okay. We really have a one-item agenda tonight, and that one-item agenda is that at the board meeting last week before, whenever the board met, they approved in concept doing a letter in support of the proposed monument sign that would be on 6th Street, just up from Harbor Boulevard. The precise location has been determined by the city and has to do with all kinds of underground utilities and things. And so it was where it was possible to actually erect it. So it's up a little bit from the corner. It's a sign that would be cantilevered out over the street. It couldn't go all the way across the street, again, because of all of the underground things that are in the way. So we were asked to put together a draft letter, which I have done. And I had hoped to be able to show it to you, but when I forwarded it to this
It's on
computer,
the email.
yeah, when I said computer data. So has everyone had enough of a chance to review it to
I
act on?
did. I would classify it as a fairly positive letter, correct?
Yeah, it's supporting in principle, and it's pointing out the fact that actually the neighborhood council several years ago proposed such a sign as a part of our visioning of what we would like to see in downtown.
And it looks great. It's on Facebook. If you go to Discover San Pedro, they got a little survey. There's 3 sign types. They all virtually look alike. But it's going to be great when people are on Harbor and then they see the sign and it's going to lead them in to downtown. It's a fabulous idea. Diana, do you remember the timing of all that?
They were hoping to go to the Cultural Affairs Commission, I think the end of February, but it looks like it's going to be sometime in March now.
Well, that's soon.
Yeah, but that's the first step in getting the actual city approvals, and I don't know the timing beyond that.
Well, it sounds like this year.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the letter.
I move.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Rock, seconded by Linda. Is there any more discussion or questions about the letter? Okay, in that case, we will call roll. Linda Alexander,
Yes.
Pat Nave,
Yes.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Chuck Hart,
Yes.
Diana, yes, Rock Hatfield,
Yes.
and Craig is absent. So carried unanimously. Thank you very much. There's only really one other item. Because I gave the updates I were relevant. The only other item.
You sound terrible.
I feel terrible. Is public comment. Does anyone have any public comment?
I have an announcement to make.
Yes, that's public comment.
Okay, I am running for honorary mayor of San Pedro.
Oh,
It-
yeah.
It will be, we're having a little kickoff at our office tomorrow at 10. It doesn't have to be widely attended. It'll probably be a little brainstorming session, but we did want to present the nonprofits, which are LAMI, LA Maritime Institute, and the Bridge City Alliance. And Elise is thrilled with that. And both nonprofits love each other. So this will be good. There's 3 others that'll be announced at the networking breakfast on Friday. And win or lose, we just hope to make this a positive thing for down San Pedro as a whole, specifically downtown San Pedro, our nonprofits, and just want to shine a light on all the positivity that's going on here. So we would appreciate everybody's support when we have events and things like this. There will be a tall ship dinner cruise, evening cruise. So look out for that.
That'll be fun. Any other public comment? Tom Norman.
Just want to encourage you to get some rest, Diana.
Yeah.
Great seeing everybody here at the meeting, all the work you did. But in particular, Dad, I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had 2 other people that have had this, and it was a 24-hour thing. So I'm anticipating I'll be up and down tomorrow.
Well, you got out of doing the minutes. That's the most important thing.
Yes, it was.
Make sure you take your COVID test just in case.
Yeah, I think they may have to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And Dan, I'll be calling you.
Thanks.
And
Look
Tom,
forward to it.
thanks for joining us, because I think the MOTEMs will probably require a review at your committee.
I think so. So thank you for the suggestion. Have a good night all.
Good night,
Yep.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.